Well, I guess it was bound to happen sooner or later. So hey, it's Harry Husky, and yeah, you can probably tell by the title that I'm going to be talking about something that I guess was bound to happen to me at some point during any stage of the pandemic. And considering the amount of large scale events I did, I was surprised somehow I didn't get it until uh, very early June, which was when I first came down with it. But I'm sure that obviously, unless you've been living under a rock, that COVID is no secret to anybody, and I kind of haven't really thought out what to say for this because I'm doing this completely unscripted. But basically, just to give a bit of background, as I'm not going to go into a lot beforehand, but I just want to say that I have done a very large handful of large scale events ever since COVID restrictions were lifted. Regardless of that being indoor or outdoor, and typically in the outdoor ones, we've had people turn up in their tens of thousands, and we have had quite a few hundred people at the indoor events that I have been to. And somehow I have not come down with COVID. But where of all places did I end up getting it? Well, if I'm being brutally honest, I'm not surprised that of all the places I could have been to and could have ended up getting it, any place in the world, let alone the UK, Birmingham. Yep, I got this thing from Birmingham after attending an event, and it might be a little surprise to anyone considering the memes and the videos that I've seen about it. For example, I think it was the Something Something Ape Society that made this suggestion about a Tesco shopping trolley.
Let's begin by upgrading the armament. We will begin by mounting a 12.7mm M2HB Browning heavy machine gun, plus another for anti-aircraft purposes against aerial attacks, and a few more if you live in Birmingham, and a few more if you live in Birmingham.
And let's just have a look at some of the stuff about Birmingham that I think should be self-explanatory.
I just woke up in a steaming mood, yeah, because I live in a hole. Do you know what I mean? Birmingham is a hole. I hate the place. I hate it. It's full of dickheads. I hate it.
Oh, you fucking hard, aren't you? Yeah. Oh, look at him, yeah. Yeah, whatever.
So yeah, with that being said, I think you can kind of understand where I'm going with this. So basically, the event I happen to have got it from, well, I might not have got it from the event itself. For all I know, I could have got it from somebody outside of the event space, like because it was quite near the NEC area, and you've also got the Resort World. But basically, those who don't know what I'm talking about, it was during Confuzzled I got it from, and for those of you who are not in the know, or probably not in the furry fandom, Confuzzled is basically the UK's largest furry convention that typically takes place at the last weekend of May, and it attracts people from all over the world. We get people from Germany, the Netherlands, sometimes America, and there's a lot of other parts of the world and from various different continents. This convention has, it's attracted different furries from all over the world. And during the convention, I was hearing about how some of the medical staff were taking a precaution, for example, wearing masks and wearing PPE after being in too close contact with a confirmed COVID-19 case. And the day after that, one of my friends ended up having to isolate in their hotel room because they got it. And I was seeing people who were leaving the convention, like, because for example, those who didn't have late departure and weren't staying for the Dead Dog party, when they got home, I found out they caught it. They basically posted it on their socials and were posting it in the official Telegram chat for this convention. And I was constantly testing myself regularly, and every time during the convention I would end up getting a negative test. And so here's an example of the Dead Dog Party, and we were all just pretty much having the time of our lives, not knowing pretty much what was coming to us, or not thinking about it. And roughly about 2 o'clock in the morning, which was just the morning I was just about to check out of the hotel, I did a test, and that was negative. There was no faint T-line or anything, and I kind of felt a bit perfectly fine. But when it got to roughly the afternoon on a Wednesday, I do remember feeling a little bit, I don't quite know what to do, but there was something that just wasn't quite right, and I couldn't quite put my finger on what it was. And normally I would stay around the hotel area and chill with a few friends before we leave. We kind of wait for the alcohol to leave their system, even though I don't drink. I just kind of like to be with them because A, I like the company, and also I like the night drive. But the problem was, those friends of mine who would normally stay around were in their hotel rooms isolating because they had COVID. And by the time, so I ended up leaving, a few hours later than I would, because of the last 2 Confuzzles I did, I would leave around the early evening on the Wednesday so I could have the night drive, because I do prefer driving in the night than I do in the daytime, because everything just looks so much prettier, and somehow it just makes me feel a bit more alert of my surroundings and makes me appreciate them a bit more. So I left about mid to late afternoon, I think it was, and I think I got home about 3 o'clock after just over a 2-hour drive. And while I was driving, I can't quite describe what it was that I was feeling, but I remember getting these sort of tingling areas right in my my trachea, and I was also kind of feeling a little bit dizzy. But I did drink plenty of fluids while I was driving, and I was kept focused. I had the music turned down, so basically, yeah. So as soon as I got home, I kind of just unpacked as much as I could, because as it was going on, I kind of just felt a bit. I'm trying to figure out what the words is I'm trying to use here, but basically, as soon as I got home, I just remember just having not as much energy as I did as soon as I left the convention, and I kind of unpacked as much as I could, and I remember just lying down on the sofa for a bit. I think maybe I thought I was just exhausted from the driving and just having a very long weekend. That might have been what contributed to it. But while I was unpacking, I ended up falling asleep on my bed face down. That happened around about 5 o'clock in the afternoon, and I ended up waking up about 8 p.m. And when I did wake up, I had what felt like quite a bad fever. I had very tingling. I had these very weird feelings in my body, and I was actually kind of shivering, like I remember having this feeling of feeling very cold. So I kind of took a bit of a precaution. I did kind of wear a mask because I wasn't alone in the house. I had my parents downstairs, and I shut myself in the kitchen, and I took a test. Now, what I did in this circumstance was I kind of tried to get this test as accurate as I possibly could. So I went outside in the garden, and I coughed on the swab. I kind of sneezed on the swab as well. Just basically because those are how COVID is transmitted the much easiest. So that being done, I didn't want to do it indoors because I didn't want to cough or sneeze COVID onto things if that was the case, and I basically put it in the test tube, and then so now I just squeezed the sample into my lateral flow test and waited very anxiously, and typically where I wouldn't see a T-line, I saw a T-line, and I thought, well, shit. And then when it sort of when the test sort of went up the strip in the lateral flow test, further up, and when it started to fade, because the C line, which indicates a negative test, was there, but the T line I remember being very, very dark and thicker than the C line itself, and I just come to terms with, yep, it actually happened to me. Over 2 years of doing so many events and somehow not getting, I came down with COVID. It only took 5 days in Birmingham, of all places, and yep, COVID, I wouldn't say took me down, because well, what am I talking about? It kind of did take me down in a way. But as I was doing this, I was in the kitchen, and my parents were literally sat here in the living room. So I had the kitchen door shut. I kind of wore a mask, and it was a KN95, which is one of the best full protection against transmitting the virus. And I basically showed them, and I was, being honest, I was not so much worried about catching COVID. I was more worried about what the parents would think if I caught COVID. And but they were sort of fine about it. They didn't worry too much. And being honest, when I did find out I had COVID, I will admit I did laugh, because it just wasn't so much of a surprise to me, given the amount of people I heard had caught it, and the fact that I was just not feeling quite well. And given how I was feeling, I wasn't going to be surprised if that was the end result, and it wasn't, but it was. And then after that, I just... okay, so now that I've found out I've got COVID, and let's just go on to what happened afterwards. So pretty much during the night after I found out that I got COVID, I just, it kind of just felt nothing more than a really bad fever, and I just remember feeling like really cold. And basically the other problem with me, I was supposed to be going to a Jubilee party for a weekend, and I had some other events going on as well, but all of that went completely out of the window. So after the first night, it kind of just felt a little bit like a fever. I just kind of spent most of the day in bed, and kind of coughing and sneezing. And I will admit, I did actually have a mask on while I was sleeping, and I did have a mask on while I was around the house, even when I was alone in the house and everyone else was out at the Jubilee party for that weekend. But the only reason for that being is because I'm notoriously germophobic, and I just didn't want to breathe the virus onto things. So, yes, the only place I didn't wear a mask was out in the garden so that the particles could fly up into the air. And I didn't wear a mask in the bathroom, because obviously I can't brush my teeth and have a bath or a shower with a mask on, because, that would just, oh well. But then the next days after that, it wasn't actually that bad. Because after that day of it being with a fever and coughing and sneezing on numerous occasions, all that really happened after that was just me sitting in bed with an iPad, with what felt like a mild cold, just waiting for it to go away. And that was really all there is to it. So I did end up having it for about 10 days, and it started clearing up on day 9. Because what I would do is I would take a test every 2 days, because test kits in my area were like gold dust at the time, and we didn't have as much. And hopefully at the time my dad didn't have it, my mum didn't get it, although as we speak of recording this, my parents did go away to Yorkshire, and my dad ended up getting it. He got COVID while he was away in Yorkshire, but they didn't exactly know where and when they got it. But my dad ended up having to isolate in their caravan. So there is to it to that. But going back, I was doing a test every 2 days, and by day 7, the T line was starting to fade, and by day 9 there was a slight T line. It was very, very faint. You could just about see it. But by day 10, I was perfectly clear, and that was quite a interesting experience, needless to say. But overall, how was it for me having COVID, and what was it like to have? From my personal bodily experience, it wasn't that bad, or as bad as I thought it would be, because I was hoping it would just feel like a mild cold. And after the first day, thankfully that was just the case. But turns out the one thing I wish I knew while I had it was to avoid caffeinated things, because according to a few friends who have told me that anything that's got caffeine in it isn't good for the virus, and it would cause the virus to remain in your system for a lot longer. So I just thought, well, crap, if I knew that, I probably would have been clear of it sooner rather than later. The only negatives for me was to having COVID was the fact that having to miss out on a lot because I just couldn't go out anywhere, and it actually messed up my sleep pattern really badly. And the other thing COVID did to me in the end was it kind of sucked out so much from me in terms of the energy, lack of enthusiasm, and lack of motivation to do anything, which I hear is one of the effects of long COVID. But the other thing, now that I have had COVID, and being honest, I feel that if I hadn't had any form of vaccination, because I have had my first dose, second dose, and my booster as well back, because I had my booster back in December, and had not had any form of vaccination whatsoever, I think it would have been totally different. I mean, I don't know whether or not I would have ended up in hospital or some form, or the sickness with the virus may have been a whole lot worse than what it was when I had it. But have someone who has been there and had it, I think that Henry, I just need a moment to think about what it is that I'm trying to say, so I don't end up saying the wrong thing, and so what I end up saying doesn't come across in the wrong way. So I just need a moment to think about that. Okay, so my conclusion after having COVID was it wasn't bad for me personally, and had I not had any form of vaccination, my situation with the virus definitely, I think, would have been totally different. And after hearing a lot of my friends getting COVID, they were all vaccinated. They all had some form of vaccination against COVID. Most of them had their booster. And the thing about that being is, I feel like that we, as people who have had COVID from this convention, are proof that vaccination is the gateway out of COVID being a global health issue, on top of other public health measures, which I will get to. But the thing I want to talk about is all the people I have known who have caught COVID, they weren't even hospitalised while they had the virus. I do know one person who had it before they were vaccinated and ended up being hospitalised with the virus. But they had it a second time after this convention, and their situation was totally different. But of all the people who I have known who have caught COVID after this con, friends and people who I've been following on Twitter, not once did they end up setting foot in hospital. I do know that some of them did end up losing their sense of taste as well, but bizarrely for me, somehow I didn't lose mine. I know that moving forwards, my dad who caught it ended up losing his taste as well. He couldn't smell anything, he actually can't smell anything or taste anything to the day that I'm recording this. But I did hear quite a few people losing their sense of taste and smell, but which is one thing I will admit, I was also worried about getting COVID, but somehow didn't even lose it once. Everything was still delicious, everything smelled beautiful in the way that it did, even though I did have some things that I just wish I couldn't smell. But on top of that, I do feel that from what I have seen from other people's experience and from my experience, that, vaccination is definitely helping COVID be a thing that we are able to live with. Because the harsh reality is, living with COVID is eventually something that all of us are going to have to do, just like we have done with the flu, as well as other illnesses spread by viruses as well. And the other reality is, we can't keep responding to new variants, bringing in new restrictions such as limited capacities and closure of some businesses, leading into businesses going under as well as jobs being lost. Because as someone who has been affected by the pandemic through lockdowns as well as event limitations, I can't go through something like this again. And I do feel that now that we have been through this major historical event, and I know I've said this in quite a few videos in the past, but I do want to see pandemics be a thing of the past. And I feel like through this, because surely with this modern day and age, we shouldn't be having to go through like this with the technology we have But I try not to get political, but I'm only going to mention the China Communist Party once, because of something they did, and the only reason why I say that COVID is a global health issue in the first place is because of them, because they hid it from the rest of the world and tried to cover it up so that nobody knew about this, because it started kicking off in mid-November, but we pretty much didn't start knowing about this until okay, just to clarify on that. Mid-November 2019 was when it all kicked off, or where it started to kick off, and we pretty much, the rest of the world didn't start knowing about this until what, mid or late January 2020, and after that everything just fell apart from there. So, yeah. But one thing I do want to touch up on is that I do feel that after we have been through this pandemic, and while we are still in this pandemic, there are a lot of public health practices that really, I think, should be a thing, or should have at least been a thing pre-pandemic. I mean, years before this pandemic was even a thing. For example, regular hand sanitising points, because you did have them in hospitals, but I do feel like, ideally, those things should have been a thing everywhere in all other hospitality industries and also other sectors where they are now, thanks to the pandemic. On top of that, the regular sanitising of tables, chairs, and all touching points across various businesses. Not so much because of COVID, but also we have heard reports of the McDonald's order screens of how much fecal bacteria that they have been covered in. So, in that sense, we do need to see more things being brought in, and we need to see more things that need to stay after this pandemic in order to stop, in general, other people from getting sick. For example, you've also got norovirus, even though I know that can be found in your own toilet, salmonella, E. coli, on top of all the other illnesses spread through touch and spread through viruses. We need to keep doing these things, for example, sanitising, as well as... sorry about that, I'm doing this completely... Like I said, I'm doing this just completely unscripted, so I'm kind of trying to be careful not to touch a grey area in case what I end up saying is taken in the wrong way or it gets taken out of context. But, okay, so I think it's probably best if I finish off this video with this. As someone who has had COVID, it is something that eventually in life all of us are going to have to live with, just like we have done with the common cold and as well with the flu. We all have the ability to do that through annual vaccination, antiviral drug treatments, as well as general public health practices like the regular sanitising of hands, regularly washing your hands, as well as the sanitising of regular touching points, for example, tables, chairs, and other forms as well. Because I just can't go through more lockdowns and more restrictions, seeing so many friends and families having their jobs lost, as well as seeing sectors of the hospitality industries that they are part of just completely closed down, and the massive loss of income that they have suffered. And as someone who's also involved in the running of events, I literally cannot go through anything like this again, and I really don't want to. And I do feel that we, as a society, have a part to play in order to stop COVID from being a global health issue, and to make global pandemics like what we've been through the past couple of years a thing of the past. So, on top of that, I really do hope you all have been doing well during these absolutely trying times, and I really hope that moving forwards we could all be just better and just not let this kind of thing happen again. So I'd better finish this video right here, and that was, yeah, my experience, my personal experience with COVID-19, and this has been Harry Husky. Thank you so much for watching, and goodbye.